What's up YouTube? Welcome to the channel. In this video we are going to be discussing the subject of how you properly prepare and plaster ceiling lanterns. Well, what is a ceiling lantern? Well, if I take you off the tripod, it is one of these. Now, at the face of it, it sounds like a pretty easy task. Now, in reality, it's not that difficult. But the truth of it being that time and time again we see that you come back to a job a few years later to see that there are cracks all around the beadwork and the corners of the lantern. What is the reason for this? It is because they get extremely hot, much hotter than the ambient temperature of the room, because of the heat from the sun coming in the summer, and obviously the heat from the heating systems rising into those lanterns. So it is so important that the prep work is done properly. So in this video, we're going to show you how we go about prepping the sky lanterns so that we don't have any issues or callbacks later on down the line. We hope you enjoy the video. Consider giving a thumbs up and subscribing. Okay, so in the lantern that we have here, if I was to show you, I will just preface this by saying I did not do the board work. What we're going to do is we're going to start by taping the four corners. Now, there is a very specific way to tape these to get the best result, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you that now. So first thing you need to do is find the edge of the tape. So we like to use silver scrim, but the reality is any will do. And then what you want to do is that, as you normally do, put the tape into the corner like so. So the corner is done. Same as any other corner. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add scrim to both sides of that corner. So down one side and then the other. So now, if we were to have a look at it, the corner is completely reinforced. So it's got the one down the middle and then two either side. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that for all four corners, and then we're going to catch up when it comes to doing the beading. Okay, so if we were now to have a look, all four corners are done. So you can see it's been taped through the middle and then tape either side, overlapping the one in the middle. Now what that'll then do is it significantly increases the strength on the corners. So when it comes to that extreme heat in the summer, those corners won't crack. But that doesn't mean the beads won't. So now we're going to focus on what you need to do to stop the beads cracking as well. Okay, so when it comes to the beading, I've fitted the first one already. Now, what I always recommend is you want to fit the two opposite firsts, and then you can measure between these two beads. So I've already cut this one. And it's very important to get the best results because it's in such a small area. You've got all these small edges trying to match up. What we always do is we just fix the middle first. So just leave that as it is. And then what we're going to do is we're going to cut the next two. Now we've got those in place. Make sure it's tight against the board, and then snip it. And again, what we're going to do first, just to start, is we're going to fix the middle, like so. Now what we can do, because we didn't fix either end, we can adjust these two beads to make sure that they fit perfectly, that the four corners all line up. And same with the other side, pushed against there. little bit tougher to fix the bead when the boarding's a little bit gappy in places. But if we're now to have a look, all the beads nicely line up. So what we're now going to do, the temptation might be not to bead the top, especially as the top of the board looks fairly straight, but you'll get a much nicer finish if you bead the top and the bottom. So we're going to do that now. We'll catch up once I've done that. Okay, so the final part of the preparation for these lanterns is to tape both sides of these beads. Now I've already done the top bead. What we're going to do is just where the wing is here, run tape just along. It's really important that you don't run the tape too close to the knuckle of the bead. So along there like so. And then this final one, and then we're going to do the same on the underside as well. Like so. Have been taped, and these bottom ones have been taped both sides of the wings. So let's have a look at it now. Any of the areas of which would be deemed likely to crack have now been scrim taped up, and certainly for us that is by far and away the best way to limit any cracking from exuberant amounts of heat which come from particularly the summer months, but also when the homeowner turns the heating on in the winter. It's been really cold and that heat rises into that area where that lantern is. It gets extremely hot, and therefore that's when you get this cracking. So if you prepare it like that, you massively reduce the chance of any cracking on the beadwork or the corners. So now the next thing to do is to put the plaster on, so we'll catch up when we're ready to do that. Okay, so if you can believe it, it's actually 2 or 3 days later. We didn't end up plastering the lantern the same time as we did the rest of the room. You'd have probably noticed that for those that follow us on our Instagram page, as we posted the images of this job. If you haven't seen them, they are here. But on to the plastering of the lantern that we have prepared. Now, for the most part, it is pretty simple. There are some things to take into consideration. One of the most important things being that it will always be showing raking light in daylight on a lantern. So you need to be very careful not to leave any tiger marks. But when it comes to actually plastering in the lantern, one of the things that you'll be surprised about is how much plaster it actually takes, and it's because you're going between 2 beads, so it's going to be a 3 or 4 mil thick on the first pass. But when applying the plaster, the technique we like to use, so you've got your plaster on, and then just to diagonally wipe it down the bead like so. So do one, same with the top, like so, and you're wiping it across the knuckle, dragging it up. Just to fill it out, and then just fill in the middle. So it's fairly standard stuff. Try and keep the corners as straight as possible, like so. And the same on this one. When it comes to the plaster, and then wipe it down the bead. Wipe it down the bead. This helps you fill out the bead straight away without dropping too much on the floor. So again, you do the opposite for the top, wipe up, so, and then fill out the middle, like so. And so you'll be surprised how much plaster gets filled out on these lanterns. So I've already done these 2 already. So if I was to show you the walls, you can see I've just thrown it on really thick. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a speed skim to straighten these corners out. It's very, very important when it comes to doing lanterns that the corners are perfectly straight. It is an awful lot easier if you have a trowel or a speed skim that bridges the two beads. It's an awful lot easier. If you don't panic about it, just leave it until the plaster's pulled right in, and then you'll be able to straighten it out a lot easier using that technique that we showed in the twitching video. So just show you the method of using the speed skim. So all we're looking to do is put it top and the bottom in the corners and then just gently drag across. You do not want to push hard. You don't want to push hard on the speed skim, because what will happen is it'll actually dig out the plaster in between the beads and then you'll get a dip in it. So you're just looking to apply it lightly. So if we were to have a look at it from down below, we also did, because it was plastered a few days later, we've also wetted the edge up. That'll just make my life a little bit easier. There you go, get the light on, that's a bit better. That'll just make my life a little bit easier without the plaster drying too quickly. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave that alone now, just let that pull right in, and then I'm just going to give that a flatten with a trowel. But don't worry about twitching it or anything like that, just make sure those corners are perfectly straight. As mentioned, in daylight it'll always have raking light on it, so those corners need to be perfectly straight. We will go through that process as the video progresses. So what we're going to do is we're going to catch up at the point where I'm flattening this plaster in. Okay, so when it comes to flattening down these lanterns, this has pulled right in. So what we're going to do, not use a twitcher, we're just going to use the nose of the trowel, and just to push the corners in like so. If we do all of them at the same time. So what that's doing is it's just pushing the gear into the corner and flattening it out. Then just drag the trowel out the corner. So no need to use a twitcher at this time. All that's going to do is just drag the plaster out the corner, like so. Right, there we go. Not too worried about anything else at this time. And that is flat enough. What I'll then do is just scrape off the bead. I'll do that top bead off camera, this is a bit more tricky. And then that's it. What I'll actually do now is I'm actually going to apply that second coat off camera. It's much the same as before. Just make sure there's enough on there, and then what I'll do is I'll use the spat again between the two beads just to straighten that back out. So we're actually going to catch up after I have done that. Okay, so the stage that we are at right now is that this has had a second coat, it has been spatted, and I did an initial flatten with my trowel about 10-15 minutes ago. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to compress the plaster with my trowel right now. The trowel I'm actually using is the 14-inch cement trowel. So you can see it's firmed up a lot. If I was to push on the plaster, it's really firmed up. What I'm going to do is just really push down on the plaster, looking to straighten that up a bit. And just really close that plaster in. Pick up any misses. This is the stage where you want to start picking those up. Don't really want to be using fat when you start wet troweling. You also notice that I've brushed off the top of the bottom bead. I did that off camera. Really pushing it hard. As you can see, there's a big miss there. Probably nicked it with the trowel or something like that. Just fill those in. Like so. So at this point we've not used the twitcher at all, and after we've run this we're just going to twitch those corners, just fill them in. Okay, so that has been now totally filled in, so what we're going to do now is grab the twitcher and we'll twitch that up. Okay, as we mentioned on previous videos, our twitcher of choice obviously is the Ragni one. I think it is the 103 version, and I say because it's now firmed up an awful lot, you can really put some pressure on the twitcher or the corner trowel. For those that asked when we did the corner trowel video why it's called a twitcher, I have absolutely no idea. The guy that taught us to plaster, that's what he called it. Okay, so now that is pretty much there. All that is really left now to do is obviously go through our wet trowels and the final trowel. Because this is obviously a lantern, we will run a plastic over that just to close that in. But to be honest with you, we probably won't really record that, as it is the same process as what you would any plastering set. So if you're unsure of that, look at our other videos, certainly on the timings video, that will really break down how to go through that process of plastering that in. Thing you just really have to be mindful of is look out for those tiger marks, look out for those misses, and to make sure those corners are nice, sharp and straight, because it will show up in the light. So in reality, what have we learned from this video? Well, hopefully you certainly can appreciate the effort that is actually required at the very start with the preparation work. Without a doubt, that is the most important thing to get right. As we've mentioned already, all too often we see, sadly, where we come back or on other jobs, etc., where we get called in to fix other people's work, and sadly the lanterns are severely cracked, and it's because the prep work hasn't been done right. So that's the process we use to do the prep work on our lanterns, and to date we've never had one fail. So all being well, hopefully this technique may also help you out when you're doing the preparation for your ceiling lanterns. The other thing to mention, which I had forgotten to mention, because obviously we are plastering in winter right now. It is December the 20th currently at the point of this video being made. It's very cold. However, in the summer, the first and the second coat dries very, very fast. So you actually may find it is better to apply the first coat, let it pull in for a bit, and then actually use the same plaster to apply that second coat. It will dry very, very quickly. The set will be very, very fast. You won't have a lot of time. The last thing you want is to apply the first coat, then apply the second, and then leave it for 20-30 minutes, and it's dried so fast that it's actually tearing the plaster. So you have to really be paying attention to it because of that direct sunlight hitting those domed or pyramid shaped windows, and it's really exaggerating that heat, and it makes those sets go off so fast. So you really have to keep an eye on how quickly that plaster is drying. Obviously in the winter we don't have that issue, but it is something to bear in mind. So hopefully you have found this video helpful. Hopefully it will enable you to churn out wonderful looking lanterns that are something really to be proud of, certainly for the homeowner, but also for yourselves as craftsmen and DIYers as you tackle these projects. What we'll actually do is I will show you a picture of the lantern finished, and I will put it right here so you can see the finished article. This job here, we actually had 4 to do, so it's been a little bit of hard work. But like I say, we hope you enjoyed the video. Hopefully it's been helpful. Consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thanks again.